Ambassador Lisa Grant walked into the big meeting room. Her hands shook a little. She felt nervous. The room was huge and cold. The walls were gray metal. Everything felt empty and lifeless. She was there to talk about trade. Humans needed to keep trading with other alien species. If they stopped trading, human colonies would have no food. People would die. Counselor Thaxoon sat across from her. He was a Vrexian. His eyes looked like crystal. They were cold and empty. He watched Lisa like a hunter watches its prey. The other aliens in the room stayed quiet. They watched and waited. Nobody wanted to make the Vrexians angry. The Vrexians were powerful. They controlled most decisions in the galaxy. Lisa started talking. She tried to keep her voice steady. She had practiced her speech many times. But standing here in front of all these aliens, she felt small and scared. Thaxoon interrupted her. His voice came through a translator device. It sounded cold and mean. Your emotions make you weak, human. Look at you. Your hands are shaking. You breathe too fast. We can smell your fear from here. This is why humans will always be less than us. The other council members nodded. They agreed with him. Lisa felt her face get hot. She was embarrassed. She was also angry. But getting angry only proved their point. It showed she could not control her feelings. The Vrexians were famous for having no emotions. They had changed their own bodies thousands of years ago. They removed all feelings from their brains. They said emotions were useless. They said logic was better than feeling. Other alien species tried to copy them. They hid their emotions. They pretended not to feel anything. This was the only way to be respected in the galaxy now. Lisa took a deep breath. She looked at Thaxoon. Maybe you are wrong, counselor. You call it weakness. We call it being alive. Thaxoon responded quickly. His words cut like knives. Your ancestors needed emotions to survive. Fear helped them run from danger. Anger helped them fight enemies. Sadness made them remember the dead. But those times are gone. In our advanced galaxy, emotions are just old baggage. They slow you down. They make you stupid. The Vrexian Empire removed these problems 7,000 years ago. Lisa had no answer. She looked around the room. The Kelrathi delegates sat still. The Asari representatives showed nothing on their faces. The Thuman counselors stared at the floor. Everyone had learned to hide what they felt. It was the price of surviving in a galaxy run by Vrexians. The meeting ended badly. Lisa did not get what she came for. The Vrexians blocked the trade agreement. They wanted humans to suffer. They wanted humans to give up and accept their way of life. Lisa went back to her room. She felt tired and defeated. Her assistant Marcus Webb was waiting for her. He had bad news written all over his face. Marcus handed her a datapad. 3 more colonies want to leave. They think the Vrexians will cut off all our trade. Without trade, those colonies will starve in 6 months. Lisa sat down. She felt heavy. The Vrexians are destroying everything we built, and they are doing it by making us ashamed of being human. Marcus looked at her. Maybe we need to stop trying to be like them. Maybe we need to stop playing their game. Lisa thought about his words. An idea started forming in her mind. It was dangerous. It was something nobody had tried before, but it was very human. For days, Lisa could not stop thinking. The Vrexians said emotions were weakness. They mocked humans for feeling things. But what if they were wrong? What if emotions were actually a strength? She thought about her own life. Emotions had driven her to become a diplomat. Emotions made her want to help people. Emotions gave her reasons to keep trying even when things were hard. The Vrexians had none of that. They did things because logic said to do them, but they had no passion, no drive, no real reason for anything except cold calculation. Lisa called Marcus into her office. I have an idea. It might be crazy, but I think we can beat the Vrexians. Marcus sat down. How? Lisa smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just thought of something both brilliant and terrible. We use the one thing they think makes us weak. We use our emotions as a weapon. Marcus looked confused. I do not understand. Lisa leaned forward. The Vrexians removed their emotions thousands of years ago, but those emotions are still in their brains somewhere. Sleeping, waiting. What if we could wake them up? That sounds dangerous. For them, I mean, yes, very dangerous. They have no experience with emotions. They never learned how to handle feelings. Imagine if all those emotions suddenly came back after 7,000 years. It would destroy them. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Is that right? To do that to them? Lisa's face became hard. They are trying to destroy us. They want to starve our colonies. They want to erase what makes us human. They started this war without firing a single weapon. Maybe it is time we fight back the same way. Marcus nodded slowly. What do we need to do? First, we need to understand them better. We need to know exactly how their brains work. We need to find the right way to trigger their emotions. And we need to do it carefully. If we push too hard too fast, we might cause permanent damage, so we need scientists. Lisa nodded. The best scientists we have, people who understand brains and emotions and psychology. We need to build a weapon, not a weapon that kills, a weapon that makes people feel. The plan was set in motion. Lisa sent secret messages to human scientists across the galaxy. She asked them to study Rexian biology. She told them to find the weakness in the Rexian brain. She told them to find a way to wake up emotions that had been sleeping for 7,000 years. It was a risky plan. If the Rexians found out, they would call it an act of war. They would attack human colonies. Many people would die. But if humans did nothing, they would die anyway, slowly, quietly, strangled by Rexian politics and trade restrictions. Lisa looked out the window of her quarters. She could see stars in the distance. Somewhere out there were human families, human children, human hopes and dreams, all threatened by aliens who thought feeling things was a disease to be cured. She thought about what she was about to do. It would change everything. It would either save humanity or doom them completely. There was no middle ground. But as she stood there looking at those distant stars, Lisa felt something the Rexians could never understand. She felt hope, and determination, and love for her people. These emotions, these feelings that Thaxun called weakness, gave her the strength to do what needed to be done. The Rexians had made a mistake. They thought emotions made humans weak. They were about to learn how wrong they were. They were about to discover that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their intelligence. It was their ability to feel, to care, to fight not just for survival but for something worth surviving for. The war had begun, not with guns or ships or bombs, but with something far more powerful. Something the Rexians had spent 7,000 years trying to escape. Something they had no defense against: emotions. The research station floated in space near a dead moon. It was far from any Rexian sensors. Nobody could see what the humans were doing there. Inside the station, Dr. Nathan Cross worked with his team. They had been studying Rexian biology for 3 months now. Nathan connected to a video call with Lisa Grant. His face appeared on her screen. He looked tired but excited. I have found something interesting, something scary too. The Rexians did not just learn to control their emotions. They actually changed their brains. They did it through genetic engineering. They've been doing it for 7,000 years. Lisa leaned closer to the screen. So they really cannot feel anything? Nathan shook his head. It is more complicated. They still have the brain parts that make emotions, but those parts are turned off, disconnected. Like an old machine that nobody uses anymore but is still in the basement. He pulled up images on the screen. They showed scans of a Rexian brain. Nathan pointed to certain areas. These parts here should create emotions. In humans, they are always active. In Rexians, they are asleep. But they are not dead. Can we wake them up? Lisa asked. Nathan smiled. It was not a nice smile. Yes. The Rexian brain has safety systems to keep emotions locked away, but we can break through those systems. Think of it like a dam holding back water. If you put enough pressure on the dam, it will break. What kind of pressure? The kind that humans are good at making. Stories, music, art, personal connections. All the things the Rexians have been avoiding for thousands of years. They avoid these things because deep down they know these things are dangerous. Lisa sat back in her chair. You want to use psychological warfare, Nathan corrected her. I want to show them what they lost. The Rexians think emotions are weakness, but they have never experienced what happens when 7,000 years of feelings suddenly break free. They have no training, no practice, no way to handle it. He brought up more data on the screen. Look at this. When we exposed test subjects to emotional stimuli, their brain activity went crazy. Fear, joy, sadness, anger, all happening at once. Their bodies started producing hormones they had not made in millennia. Some of them could not handle it. They shut down completely. Lisa felt a chill. It would destroy them. Yes, just like exposing someone who lived their whole life in a clean room to normal germs. Their immune system would not know what to do. The Vrexians made themselves vulnerable by trying to make themselves perfect. Lisa was quiet for a long time. Is this right? Should we do this? Nathan's expression became hard. They are destroying human civilization. They are trying to starve our colonies. They want to make us so desperate that we will let them change us. They want to erase what makes us human. Is that right? Lisa knew he was correct. The Vrexians had declared war on humanity. They just did it without weapons. Maybe it was time to fight back in the same way. How do we do this? She asked. Nathan began explaining his plan. We start slowly, carefully. We send human artists and musicians to Vrexian space. They perform. They share their work. Nothing threatening. Nothing obvious. Just humans being human. And that will wake up their emotions? Not right away. It will take time. But every exposure will make small cracks in their defenses. Eventually, those cracks will become breaks, and then everything will flood in at once. Nathan showed her more research. We also need to change how we act in the council meetings. Stop hiding our emotions. Stop trying to be like them. Show them real human feelings. Tell them personal stories. Make them see us as living beings, not just another alien species. Lisa thought about this. Won't that make us look weaker? To other species, maybe. But to the Vrexians? It will be like poison slowly entering their system. They think they are immune to emotions. But their brains are not. Those sleeping parts of their minds will start to wake up. Bit by bit. What happens when they fully wake up? Nathan was silent for a moment. Chaos. Complete emotional chaos. Imagine feeling every emotion you ever suppressed all at once. Joy from every success. Grief from every loss. Fear from every danger. Love from every connection. All happening simultaneously in a mind that was never trained to process any of it. Some of them might die, Lisa said quietly. Nathan nodded. Yes, some might. Their brains might not handle the overload. Others will survive but will never be the same. The Vrexian Empire as we know it will collapse. Lisa looked at the data on her screen. She saw brain scans, test results, predictions, all showing the same thing. Humans had found a weapon more powerful than any bomb or gun. They had found a way to destroy their enemy from the inside. She thought about the human colonies that were starving. The families that would die if the Vrexians won. The children who would never grow up. The future that would be erased if humanity lost this war. Do it, she said. Start the plan. Send our artists. Send our musicians. I will change how I act in the council meetings. We will show the Vrexians what emotions really are. Nathan nodded. One more thing. We need to be ready for what comes after. When the Vrexians fall apart, they will need help. They will be like children learning to feel for the first time. If we just leave them to suffer, we are no better than they are. Lisa understood. So this is not just about destroying them. It is about changing them. Exactly. We show them that emotions are not weakness. We teach them how to feel without being destroyed by it. We prove that humans are strong not despite our emotions, but because of them. The call ended. Lisa sat alone in her quarters. She thought about what they were about to do. It felt wrong and right at the same time. The Vrexians had tried to destroy humanity through politics and shame. Now humanity would destroy them through the very thing the Vrexians feared most: feelings. Over the next few weeks, plans were made. Human artists were contacted. Musicians prepared their most emotional pieces. Painters created works that showed the deepest parts of human experience. Writers crafted stories about loss and love and hope. None of them knew the real reason for their mission. They thought they were just doing cultural exchange, sharing human art with the galaxy. They had no idea they were weapons in a secret war. Lisa prepared herself too. She would need to be vulnerable in front of the council. She would need to share personal stories, show real emotions. Everything she had been trained not to do as a diplomat. It went against every instinct. Diplomats were supposed to be calm, professional, controlled. But that was playing the Vrexian game. It was time to play the human game instead. Marcus came to her office one evening. Are you sure about this? Once we start, we cannot stop. The damage will be done. Lisa looked at him. Do we have another choice? We could surrender. Accept their terms. Let them change us. Then we would not be human anymore. We would be like them, cold, empty, alive but not really living. Marcus nodded slowly. Then I guess we have no choice. Lisa stood up. She looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, The Vrexian Empire was confident in its victory. They thought they had already won. They thought humanity would crumble under their pressure. They had no idea what was coming. They had no idea that humanity had found their one weakness, the thing they had spent 7,000 years running from. The thing they thought made them superior. The Vrexians were about to learn a hard lesson. Emotions were not a weakness to be removed. They were a fundamental part of being alive, and once awakened, they could not be ignored. They could not be controlled. They could only be accepted and learned from. The humans were about to teach the Vrexians how to feel again, whether they wanted to learn or not. The first changes were small, so small that most people did not notice them. Lisa went to the next council meeting. This time she did not try to hide her feelings. When Thaxoon made another insulting comment, she did not get defensive. Instead, she told him a story. When I was 7 years old, my little brother got sick. He was only 4. Our colony did not have good medical equipment. We could not save him. I watched him die. It took 3 days. The council room went silent. Nobody talked like this in meetings. It was too personal, too emotional. But Lisa continued. I held his hand while he suffered. I felt so helpless. When he died, something inside me broke. That was grief, Counselor Thaxoon. Real, terrible grief. She looked directly at him. And you know what that grief did? It made me study medicine for 20 years. It made me join the diplomatic service. I wanted to help build connections between species. I wanted to make sure no child would die because we could not work together. That weakness you mock, it gave my whole life meaning. For a brief moment, something strange happened. Thaxoon's crystal eyes changed. Just slightly. His hand moved toward his translator, then stopped. He opened his mouth but said nothing. Other council members noticed. The Kelrathi representative Kavur had lost her own children years ago. She looked at Lisa with something like understanding, something like connection. The meeting ended differently than usual. The vote was delayed. People seemed confused, uncertain. The emotional honesty had created cracks in their usual patterns. The second phase of the plan began soon after. Human artists started appearing across Confederation space. They came as visitors, as guests, just sharing their work with anyone who wanted to see it. A musician named Jake Patterson gave a concert on the Vrexian homeworld. He played a piece of music he had written after his father died. The music was full of sadness and love and memory. It made human listeners cry. It touched something deep in anyone who heard it. The Vrexians who attended sat perfectly still. They showed no reaction on their faces. But the concert hall had medical sensors built into the seats. These sensors detected something unusual. The Vrexian brains were showing activity in areas that should be dormant. Their bodies were producing chemicals they had not made in thousands of years. Their hearts beat slightly faster. Their muscles tensed in small ways. The cracks in the dam were growing. A painter named Sarah Mitchell held art exhibitions on multiple worlds. Her paintings showed deep human experiences. One painting showed a soldier holding his dying friend. Another showed a mother seeing her baby for the first time. A third showed an old couple watching the sunset together. The Vrexians came to look at these paintings. At first, they studied them like scientists studying data. They measured the colors. They analyzed the composition. They looked at the technical skill, but something strange happened. They kept coming back. They would stand in front of the same painting for hours. They could not explain why. One Vrexian scholar talked to his colleague about it. I do not understand why this image affects me. The composition is not special. The colors are fine but not perfect. Yet I cannot stop looking at it. His colleague replied nervously. Maybe it is a human weapon, some kind of psychological attack. They were closer to the truth than they knew. Human writers shared stories. Stories about love and loss, about courage and fear, about hope in dark times. The stories were simple but powerful. They showed what it meant to be alive, to feel things, to care about others. Vrexians read these stories and felt confused. The stories had no practical purpose. They did not teach useful skills. They did not contain important data. Yet the Vrexians found themselves thinking about the stories days later, wondering about the characters, caring what happened to them. This should not happen. Vrexian minds were designed to process only useful information. Fiction was not useful. It was just made-up events about people who never existed, yet it affected them in ways they could not understand. More council meetings happened. Each time, Lisa and other human diplomats spoke with honest emotion. They shared personal experiences. They showed vulnerability. They cried when talking about sad things. They smiled when remembering happy moments. They got angry when discussing injustice. The other species in the council started changing too. The Kilrathi stopped hiding their feelings. Kavur talked openly about her dead children for the first time in years. Other Kilrathi followed her example. The Thumans remembered their love of music and art. They had suppressed it for so long to seem logical like the Vrexians. Now they brought instruments to meetings. They hummed songs between discussions. The Asari started laughing again. Real laughter. Not the polite sounds they made before. They told jokes. They smiled. They showed joy. Only the Vrexians remained unchanged. On the surface, at least. But inside their minds, a war was happening. Their logical thoughts fought against rising feelings. Their safety systems struggled to keep emotions locked away. But the pressure kept building. Thaxun felt it most of all. He attended every council meeting. He heard every human story. He saw how the other species were changing. And something inside him was changing too. He started having strange thoughts. Thoughts that were not logical. When he looked at Lisa, he did not just see a human diplomat. He saw someone who had suffered, someone who had lost people she loved, someone who kept trying despite pain. These thoughts troubled him. They served no purpose. They did not help him make better decisions. They were just noise in his mind, yet they kept coming. At night, he found himself unable to rest properly. His sleep cycle was disrupted. He had dreams, strange images and feelings that made no sense. He woke up feeling tired in a way that had nothing to do with physical exhaustion. Other Vrexians reported similar problems. Medical facilities on the Vrexian homeworld saw an increase in unusual symptoms: disrupted sleep, loss of appetite, difficulty concentrating, physical restlessness, strange sensations in the chest area, unexpected moisture in the eyes. Vrexian doctors were puzzled. These symptoms matched descriptions from ancient medical texts. Text from before the genetic modifications, back when Vrexians still had emotions. The doctors recommended avoiding human contact, staying away from human art and music and stories, but it was too late. The process had already started. The sleeping parts of their brains were waking up, and once awakened, they could not be put back to sleep. Lisa watched all of this happen. She received regular reports from Nathan's research team. The plan was working better than expected. Vrexian neural activity in emotional centers was increasing steadily. Their hormone levels were changing. Their behavior patterns were shifting, but she also saw the cost. She saw Vrexians struggling, confused, scared by things happening inside their own minds. They did not understand what they were feeling. They had no words for these experiences, no training in how to handle them. Marcus noticed her concern. "You are having doubts," Lisa nodded. "They are suffering. We are causing that suffering. They tried to destroy us. They would have succeeded if we did nothing. I know. But does that make this right?" Marcus had no answer. They both knew the truth. This was war, not the kind with weapons and explosions, but war nonetheless. And in war, people suffered. Even when you won, especially when you won, the cost was high. The question was whether they could live with that cost, whether saving humanity was worth destroying the Vrexians, whether there could be any real victory when it came at such a price. The dam was about to break. Everyone could feel it. The Vrexian Empire was on the edge of collapse, not from military defeat, not from economic failure, but from the simple, terrible fact that they were starting to feel again, and they had no idea how to survive it. The breaking point came 6 months into the human campaign. Councillor Thaxun stood before the Confederation Council. He was there to call for a final vote, a vote that would exile humanity from the galaxy forever. He had enough support. The other species would follow his lead. They always did. Thaxun opened his mouth to speak, but something went wrong. His voice cracked, not because of his translator. His actual voice broke. His throat felt tight, constricted. Something was squeezing it from the inside. He tried again. The words would not come. Instead, he thought about Lisa's story, the one about her brother dying, the grief that changed her life. And suddenly, without warning, Thaxun was thinking about his own past. He had ancestors from before the modifications. From when Vrexians still felt emotions, he had looked at their records many times. Just data, just facts. Birth dates and death dates and occupation listings. But now he remembered one entry. An ancestor who had a daughter. The daughter died young. The record only said that biological functions terminated. Nothing more. But now, for the first time ever, Thaksun wondered what his ancestor had felt. What it was like to lose a child. The feeling that flooded through him was unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was huge, overwhelming. It felt like drowning. His legs stopped working. He fell to one knee in front of the entire council. His perfect composure shattered completely. Something wet formed in his eyes. Liquid. Tears. His body was producing a response it was never designed to produce. 7,000 years of genetic engineering broke apart under the force of a single feeling. I cannot. He tried to speak. The words came out broken. Wrong. His whole body was shaking. Lisa watched from the human delegation seats. Part of her felt triumphant. This was exactly what they had planned. The breaking point. The moment when 7,000 years of suppressed emotion came crashing through all defenses. But another part of her felt something else. Pity, maybe guilt. She saw a being suffering. Someone who did not understand what was happening to him. Someone in pain. Marcus whispered next to her. We should stop this. Look at him. He is in agony. Lisa replied automatically. He wanted to destroy us. He would have succeeded, but her voice had no real conviction. She was watching Thaksun collapse. Other Vrexian counselors rushed to help him. But they were showing signs, too. Their faces showed confusion, fear, panic. Things Vrexian faces should never show. And now we are destroying him, Marcus continued. Are we any better? Or are we just better at being cruel? The question hung in the air. Lisa had no answer. She watched as Thaksun was helped out of the chamber. His entire body shook. He could not stand on his own. He could not speak. He could barely breathe. The council session ended in chaos. Nothing like this had ever happened before. A Vrexian showing emotions, crying, collapsing, it was impossible. Yet everyone had seen it. The Kelrothi representative Kuver approached the human delegation. Her expression was complicated. Anger mixed with something that might have been respect. You weaponized your own humanity. You made them feel things they cannot process. It is brilliant. Also terrible, but brilliant. Lisa watched the doors where Thaksun had been carried out. We had no choice, but her words sounded hollow even to herself. There was always a choice. The question was whether she could live with the one she had made. News spread quickly. A Vrexian counselor had broken down, shown emotions, cried. Within hours, reports came from across the Vrexian Empire. Other Vrexians were experiencing the same thing. Emotional breakthroughs happening everywhere at once. Some handled it better than others. Some Vrexians felt the emotions and managed to stay functional, confused but alive. Processing these new experiences slowly, others were not so lucky. The emotional flood was too much. Their minds could not handle it. They shut down, became catatonic, staring at nothing, unable to respond to any stimulus, lost inside their own newly awakened feelings. Still others became dangerous. Rage consumed them, or fear, or desperate love for things they had never cared about before. They acted without thinking, without the logic that had always guided them. Some hurt themselves, some hurt others. The Vrexian homeworld descended into chaos. Hospitals filled with patients showing impossible symptoms. Workplaces shut down as employees could not function. Government offices emptied as officials struggled with feelings they had no words for. It was like an entire civilization experiencing puberty and midlife crisis and grief and joy all at the same time. Every emotion ever suppressed came flooding back. 7,000 years of feelings compressed into days or hours. Lisa received constant updates. The reports got worse each day. More Vrexians breaking down, more chaos, more suffering. Nathan's predictions were coming true, but seeing it actually happen was different from reading about it in theory. The vote on humanity's expulsion was postponed, then postponed again, then forgotten entirely. The Vrexians had withdrawn all their representatives. They were dealing with their own crisis. They had no time to worry about humans anymore. Humanity had won. The threat was over. Human colonies were safe. The trade agreements would continue. Everything Lisa had fought for was secured. So why did it feel like losing? 3 weeks after Thaxoon's breakdown, he appeared at Lisa's office. He looked different. His posture was less rigid. His movements were uncertain. His crystal eyes reflected something she recognized: pain, confusion, vulnerability. "You won," he said. His voice was rough, raw, like someone learning to use it for the first time. "We mocked your emotions. We called them weakness. We were wrong." Lisa found herself saying something unexpected. "I am sorry," and she meant it. Despite everything. Despite the fact that Thaxoon had tried to destroy her people. Despite the justification for what she had done. She was genuinely sorry for his suffering. Thaxoon made a sound. It might have been a laugh or a sob. Hard to tell. "Sorry, yes, I understand that word now. I understand many words that I could not comprehend before." He paused. His next words came slowly, carefully. "My people are suffering. We removed our emotions, but we also removed our ability to cope with emotions. We are drowning. We have no framework to process what we feel." Marcus stepped forward. "We can help. Humans have spent thousands of years learning to manage emotions. We have therapists, support systems, ways to cope. We can teach you." Thaxoon looked at him. "Why would you help us? After what we tried to do to your species?" Lisa thought about that question. It was a good question. The logical answer was to let the Vrexians suffer. Let them collapse. Remove the threat permanently. But that was the Vrexian way of thinking. Cold calculation. Pure logic. Humans were different. "Because that is what emotions teach us," Lisa said. "Empathy, forgiveness, the ability to feel someone else's pain and want to help ease it. You said our emotions were weakness. Maybe you were partly right. They make us vulnerable. But they also make us strong in ways you never understood." Thaxoon was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded, just once. A simple gesture that meant more than any words could. "Help us," he said, "please." That single word, "please," spoken by a Vrexian who had never needed to ask for anything, changed everything. It was the moment when the war truly ended. Not with victory or defeat, but with understanding. Lisa nodded. "We will help. We will teach you how to feel without being destroyed by it. How to be emotional beings while still being yourselves." Thaxoon left shortly after. He walked differently than before. Less confident. More human. Marcus looked at Lisa. "So now what? Now we clean up the mess we made. We help them survive what we did to them. We turn a weapon into a gift. Can we do that? Can we really help them?" Lisa looked out the window at the stars. "I do not know. But we have to try. Because if we do not, then we really are just as bad as they were. Maybe worse." The question was no longer whether humanity could win. They had already won. The question now was whether they could win with honor. Whether they could be strong enough to help those they had defeated. Whether emotions really were a strength or just another kind of weapon, time would tell. The human psychologists arrived on the Vrexian homeworld 2 weeks later. They came in small groups, quietly, without fanfare. They were there to help, not to conquer. Dr. Claire Murphy was one of the first. She specialized in trauma and emotional processing. She had helped humans deal with terrible things: war, loss, pain. Now she would try to help an entire species deal with waking up after 7,000 years. Her first patient was a Vrexian named Kethril. He sat across from her in a small room. His hands shook. His eyes were wide and scared. He had been a logistics coordinator before, managing supply chains, making efficient decisions. Now he could barely function. "Tell me what you are feeling," Claire said gently. "I do not know," Kethril replied. His voice trembled. "Everything, nothing, too much. It hurts, but not in a physical way. It feels like I'm breaking apart." Claire nodded. "That is normal. You are experiencing emotions for the first time. It is overwhelming. But you will learn to manage them. I promise." "How long will it take?" "Years, maybe decades. Humans learn this slowly as children. You are learning it all at once as adults. It will be hard, but you will get through it." The sessions were difficult. The Vrexians struggled to even name what they felt. Fear, sadness, anger, joy, all mixed together. No separation. No understanding. Just raw, unprocessed feeling. Claire taught them basic techniques. Breathing exercises. Mindfulness, ways to recognize and name emotions. Ways to let feelings pass without being consumed by them. It was slow work. Some Vrexians made progress quickly. Others took much longer. Some never fully recovered. The emotional flood had damaged them too badly. They would need support for the rest of their lives. More human therapists arrived, then teachers, then artists and musicians and writers, not as weapons this time, as helpers, as guides, showing the Vrexians that emotions could be beautiful, not just painful. Something unexpected started happening. The other Confederation species watched what was happening with the Vrexians. They saw beings learning to feel, struggling but surviving, and they started questioning their own suppression. The Kelrathi had hidden their grief for so long. Now they allowed themselves to mourn openly. Kavur held a memorial service for her dead children. Other Kelrathi joined her. They cried together. They shared memories. They healed together. The Thumans remembered their cultural heritage, music and dance and celebration. They had suppressed it to seem logical. Now they brought it back. Their cities filled with sound and color and life. The Osari rediscovered humor. They told jokes. They played pranks. They laughed without shame. Their whole society became lighter, happier. The galaxy was changing. Not just the Vrexians. Everyone. All the species that had tried to copy the Vrexian way were now rejecting it. They were becoming themselves again. 6 months passed. Then a year. The Vrexian Empire was slowly rebuilding. Not as it was before. As something new. Something that balanced logic with emotion, calculation with compassion. Thaxun returned to the Confederation Council. He still served as a counselor. But he was different now. His voice carried warmth. His eyes showed feeling. He moved with less certainty but more humanity. A special session was called. All the member species gathered. Everyone wanted to hear what Thaxun would say. How would he address what had happened? Thaxun stood at the speaker's position. For a moment he just looked at all the assembled delegates. Then he spoke. We called humans too emotional. We were correct in identifying the difference. But we were catastrophically wrong in our judgment. Emotions are not a weakness to overcome. They are a strength to cultivate. He paused. Looked at Lisa. The humans could have destroyed us completely. We were vulnerable, helpless. They could have left us to suffer. Instead, they taught us how to be whole. That is true strength. The council chamber was silent. Then Kavur began clapping. A human gesture. Others joined in. Soon the entire council was applauding. Not just for Thaxun, for all of them. For surviving. For changing. For becoming better. New programs were established. Cultural exchange initiatives. Emotional support systems for all species. Educational reforms teaching children about feelings alongside facts. Medical training for therapists and counselors. The Confederation Council itself changed. Meetings became more animated, more passionate. Delegates argued with real feeling. They also connected with real empathy. Decisions were still made carefully. But now they considered more than just logic. They considered how choices would affect people, how they would make beings feel. Lisa walked through the council halls one evening. The building felt different now. Less cold, less empty. She could hear laughter from one room, singing from another, quiet conversation from a third. Marcus joined her. We did it, we really did it, Lisa nodded. Not the way I expected. I thought we would win and they would lose. I did not expect both sides to win. Is that what happened? We both won? I think so. We saved humanity, but we also saved the Vrexians. From themselves. From 7,000 years of running from what makes life worth living. They stopped at a window. Outside, they could see ships from dozens of species. Coming and going. Trading. Communicating. Living together in a galaxy that was learning to feel again. Do you regret it? Marcus asked. What we did to them. Lisa thought about that. I regret the pain we caused. But I do not regret the outcome. They are better now, healthier, more complete, even if the process was terrible. Thaxun appeared in the hallway. He saw them and walked over. His movement was more natural now, less mechanical. Ambassador Grant. I wanted to thank you again. You do not need to thank me. We nearly destroyed you. Thaxun shook his head. A very human gesture. No, you nearly destroyed what we had become. The empty shells we made of ourselves. But you gave us back what we lost. The ability to feel, to connect, to truly live. He paused. There was moisture in his eyes. Tears that came from genuine feeling, not just biological malfunction. I cried today because a colleague told me about her sick child. I felt her pain. I wanted to help her. Before, I would have just noted the information and moved on. Now I care. That is a gift. A terrible, painful, beautiful gift. Lisa felt her own eyes watering. That is what emotions are. Terrible and beautiful at the same time. That is what makes us alive. Daxun smiled. Another thing he had learned to do. Yes, I understand that now. He left them there in the hallway. Lisa and Marcus stood in silence for a moment. We changed the galaxy, Marcus said quietly. Not just the galaxy. We changed what it means to be part of the Confederation. Logic and reason are still important, but now they are balanced with feeling and compassion. The galaxy is learning to be both smart and kind. Years later, historians would debate what happened. Some called it the emotional revolution. Others called it the Great Awakening. Some even called it a war crime. The debate would continue for generations. But one thing was undeniable. Humanity had proved something the galaxy needed to learn. Emotions were not a weakness. They were not a flaw to be corrected or a disease to be cured. Emotions were what made life meaningful. They were what drove beings to create and build and connect. They were what made suffering bearable and joy possible. They were what separated truly living from simply existing. The Vrexians had spent 7,000 years trying to become perfect through logic alone. They had removed what they saw as flaws, but in doing so, they had removed what made them whole. Humanity had shown them the truth. Perfection was not found in cold calculation. It was found in the messy, complicated, beautiful chaos of feeling everything. The pain and the joy, the fear and the hope, the anger and the love, all of it together, all of it important, all of it necessary. That was the gift humanity gave the galaxy. Not technology or weapons or even peace, but the understanding that being alive meant feeling alive. And that was not a weakness, it was the greatest strength in the universe. 5 years had passed since the day Thaxun collapsed in the council chamber. The galaxy looked very different now, not in appearance but in spirit. Something fundamental had changed across every world, every species, every heart. Lisa stood on the observation deck of a new facility, the Confederation Emotional Wellness Center. It orbited between human and Vrexian space, a neutral ground where all species could come to learn about feelings, to heal from trauma, to grow as emotional beings. The center was Claire Murphy's idea. After years of helping individual Vrexians, she realized the galaxy needed a permanent place dedicated to emotional health, a place where logic and feeling were given equal importance. Claire approached Lisa on the observation deck. They stood together watching ships arrive, bringing patients, bringing students, bringing anyone who wanted to understand themselves better. We are getting visitors from 40 different species now, Claire said. Some are Vrexians still learning to process emotions, but most are from other species who suppressed their feelings for so long, they forgot how to express them properly. Lisa smiled. We started this to save humanity. We ended up saving everyone, Claire nodded. The Vrexians taught the galaxy that logic was important. Humans taught the galaxy that feelings were important too. Now we are all learning that you need both. Balance, not one or the other. A young Vrexian walked past them. She was maybe 20 years old, born after the awakening. She had grown up learning to feel from the beginning. She laughed at something her companion said. The sound was natural, easy, nothing like the forced, uncomfortable emotions of older Vrexians who were still learning. That is the future, Claire said, watching the young Vrexian. A generation that never knew the emptiness. They will be stronger than their ancestors, wiser too. The Confederation Council had changed dramatically. New rules required emotional intelligence training for all diplomats. Councils included psychologists and therapists alongside military advisors and economists. Decisions considered both practical outcomes and emotional impacts. The Vrexian Empire had dissolved. Not through war or collapse, but through transformation. It became the Vrexian Commonwealth, a looser organization focused on cooperation rather than control. They still valued logic and efficiency, but now they valued compassion and connection equally. Thaxun had become something unexpected, an ambassador for emotional wellness. He traveled the galaxy sharing his story, telling other species what he had learned, warning them not to make the same mistakes his ancestors made. He came to the wellness center often, sometimes as a speaker, sometimes as a patient. He still struggled with emotions occasionally, probably always would, but he had learned to see that struggle as part of being alive, not a flaw to fix. Lisa found him in one of the meditation gardens. He sat quietly, watching artificial rain fall on artificial plants. The garden was designed to provide peaceful spaces for reflection. She sat beside him. Neither spoke for a while. They had learned that comfortable silence was a form of communication too. Not everything needed words. Finally, Thaxoon spoke. I had a dream last night about my ancestor, the one who lost a daughter. In the dream, I felt what he felt. The grief, the love, the desperate wish to change what could not be changed. That sounds painful. It was, but also beautiful. I understood him in a way I never could before. I understood why he chose to keep living despite that pain. Because love is worth the grief. Connection is worth the loss. Lisa felt tears forming. She let them fall. Crying was no longer something to hide. That is what humans learned long ago. That is what we tried to teach you. Thaxoon turned to look at her. You succeeded, not just with Vrexians. With everyone. The whole galaxy is different now. Better, more alive. But at such a cost, Lisa said quietly. So many Vrexians were hurt. Some never recovered. Some died, yes, the cost was high. But the alternative was extinction. Not physical extinction. Spiritual extinction. We were becoming machines. Perfect, efficient, and completely dead inside. You saved us from that fate. They sat in silence again. The rain continued falling. Somewhere in the center, a music class was happening. Lisa could hear singing. Multiple species, multiple voices creating harmony together. Marcus found them eventually. He looked excited. You need to see this. Both of you. He led them to a conference room. A holographic display showed a distant system, one that had been discovered recently. New species had been found there, advanced, powerful, and completely logical. They had no emotions. They had removed them through technology, just like the Vrexians had done through genetics. They call themselves the Centauri, Marcus explained. They contacted us last week. They heard about what happened with the Vrexians. They want to know if what we did was real. If emotions can really be awakened after being suppressed for so long. Thaxoon studied the display. How long have they been without emotions? 12,000 years. Longer than Vrexians. Lisa felt something stir inside her. Not fear, not exactly. More like recognition. Here was another species that needed help. Another group of beings who had lost themselves trying to be perfect. What do they want from us? She asked. They want to know if they should change. If reawakening emotions is worth the pain. They are asking for our advice. Thaxoon and Lisa looked at each other. The same thought passed between them. This was a chance to do things right from the start. To help instead of attack. To heal instead of harm, we should go to them, Thaxoon said, together. Human and Vrexian. Show them what is possible. Let them choose their own path, Lisa agreed. We learned a lot from what happened with you. We can do this better. Slower, safer. We can give them the choice we never gave you. Plans were made. A delegation would travel to Centauri space. Humans and Vrexians working together, showing these emotionless beings what they could become, offering help without forcing change. The night before departure, Lisa walked through the wellness center one last time. She thought about how far they had come, how much had changed. The galaxy that had mocked humanity for being too emotional now celebrated emotion as a gift. Claire joined her for the walk. You are nervous about the Centauri mission. Yes. What if we make the same mistakes? What if we hurt them like we hurt the Vrexians? Claire smiled. You will not. You know better now. You have Thaxoon with you. You have experience. You have wisdom earned through suffering. That makes all the difference. I hope you are right. The ship left the next morning. Lisa stood on the bridge with Thaxoon beside her. They watched the wellness center shrink in the distance. A symbol of what they had built together. What they had learned together. The Vrexians called humans too emotional, Thaxoon said quietly. They meant it as an insult. A condemnation, but they were actually giving humans the highest compliment possible. How so? They were saying humans were fully alive. Completely, messily, beautifully alive. And that is terrifying to beings who chose safety over life. Control over connection. Perfection over presence. Lisa thought about that. So we did not ruin them emotionally. We saved them emotionally. Yes. Though the process of being saved felt a lot like being ruined. That is the paradox. True healing often feels like breaking. Real growth often feels like death. But on the other side is life. Real, full, complete life. The ship jumped to faster than light speed, heading toward the Centauri, toward another species that needed to learn what the Vrexians had learned. That emotions were not weakness. That feeling things deeply was not a flaw, but this time would be different. This time they would offer choice. This time they would guide instead of force. This time they would help beings choose to become alive rather than forcing awakening upon them. The galaxy was learning, slowly, painfully, but learning nonetheless. Learning that life without feeling was not really life at all. Learning that emotions, messy and complicated as they were, made everything worthwhile. Humanity had taught the galaxy this lesson, not through superiority, not through conquest, but through simply being human. Through crying and laughing and loving and grieving and hoping and fearing and feeling everything deeply. They called humans too emotional, and they were right. Humans were emotional, deeply, powerfully, completely emotional, and that was not a weakness. It was humanity's greatest gift to the universe, the proof that being alive meant feeling alive, the demonstration that emotions were not something to overcome but something to embrace. The Vrexians had tried to emotionally ruin humans by shaming them for their feelings. Instead, humans had emotionally saved the Vrexians by teaching them to feel again. And now, together, human and Vrexian, emotional and logical, feeling and thinking working as one, they would help others find the same balance, the same wholeness, the same beautiful, terrible, complicated, wonderful state of being truly alive. The stars stretched ahead of them, full of possibilities, full of species waiting to learn, full of futures waiting to be felt. And for the first time in 7,000 years, the Vrexians understood what humans had always known, that the journey ahead would be hard, that feelings would hurt sometimes. That vulnerability was scary, but it was worth it, all of it. Every tear and every laugh and every moment of connection, because that was what it meant to be alive. That was what it meant to be whole.